Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here on Parenting Playbook on Fox 8 CLE Plus. Is it too early to say happy holidays? I don't think so. I even turned holiday music on in the car. And you know, when you start seeing those commercials and you start thinking about decorating the house and you know that the holidays are right around the corner, the stress starts to build. I don't know anyone who doesn't get stressed out in some way, shape, or form around the holidays. And there have been a ton of studies on this about why we get so stressed out. And it could be a bunch of different reasons, but just to point out some numbers here, you might find yourself falling into this category. Last year, 28% of Americans said they were more stressed than ever around the holidays. Psychiatry.org said 46% were stressed about affording holiday gifts. We're right in the middle of that. 47% said stress was due to missing a loved one. And 35% says it was due to complicated family dynamics. We have a lot to unpack here. Our guest today, Dr. Susan Albers with the Cleveland Clinic. Susan, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
And like we were talking about right before we started recording, I feel like those three, and I didn't even list all of the reasons why people get stressed, but those three specifically, I feel like everyone can find themselves in one of those categories. When do you think the stress actually starts for most people?
Holiday stress starts significantly earlier than most people realize, around Halloween. At that time, you're walking through the stores and you're starting to hear all of the holiday music. The days are shorter. So we experience what we call anticipatory stress. That's when we start to get in the holiday mood, but also all of those stressors start to pile up. And it's typically about the week before holidays hit that your to-do list skyrockets. So if you're feeling stressed, it's quite normal, I assure you.
Good. And there are varying degrees of stress. We're going to dive into that. But the first one I mentioned, which seemed to be the most common answer, is financial stress. Now, I wish we could, do something that would make money magically appear in our bank accounts, but it doesn't work that way. So this one seems like it's the more difficult one to tackle, which is probably why most people are stressed about it. But is there anything that people can do, aside from budgeting, and we'll cover that topic in a different episode, but aside from just budgeting and doing that, is there a way to think about that financial stress, or is there a conversation that we have with our family or with ourselves that you think would help?
You're absolutely right. We can't control that the holidays bring to us all of these stressors, with financial expectations being the most stressful for most people, particularly this year. We can start out by being prepared and changing our mindset. I tell people to sit down and really think about minimizing this year. We don't have to do everything. A lot of the stress comes from our expectation that we have to have this Hallmark type holiday. And when you start changing it and thinking about what really matters and what's meaningful to you, it doesn't always come from money or from presents. You can really focus on spending time with family and having experiences. Sometimes these don't cost anything at all.
I love that you put it that way. Like, we do expect ourselves to have this holiday, this Hallmark holiday. Even the other day, I went into my husband and in his home office, and I go, how much is too much for ornaments? Like, how much should I not? And then he looked at me, I go, you're right. We don't need these special ornaments. I think that sometimes we need to check ourselves of like, okay, lower the expectations and needs and wants.
And one of the best ways you can do that is taking a step back from social media. I think that really,
that's true,
really triggers our expectations and raises them. When we start to compare ourselves to others, we call it social comparison. And we can start to feel really unhappy when we see someone else is smiling or having all these gifts. So if you just take a little bit of a step back sometimes from social media, it can really help.
Yeah, that's so true. So do you get a lot of patients talking about the holidays being especially sad because maybe a loved one has passed recently, or that pain never really goes away?
Grief can be like an unexpected guest during a holiday. It tends to open up grief during the holiday season, anniversaries, birthdays, but particularly holidays. We really notice the absence of someone that we care about. I urge people not to be afraid of grief. It's a little bit like grief is always humming in the background, almost like a radio. And sometimes it turns up really high and it's all you can think about in here. And then sometimes it's turned down low and it's in the background. Make that space during the holiday. What can be really helpful, particularly with children, is creating a ritual. Writing a card, putting an ornament on a tree, talking about this loved one. And people respond to grief in different ways. Some people are doers. They will clean and cook and be really busy. Other people are talkers. They want to talk all about it, tell stories. And then some people are very quiet about their grief. None of it is wrong, and that's perfectly okay. But if you have someone in your life who has had a loss this year, I would say check in with them. Ask how they're doing. Anticipate that this is going to be a pretty rough year.
Yeah. How do you take those first steps? Like, how do you figure out what can help you turn around or turn that corner with grief? You know, I feel like the holidays, it's a lot of tradition.
Yes.
You know, like, I mean, my grandparents are gone. I grew up at their house every holiday. So I always find comfort in making some of the same foods that they make or that they used to make that I grew up with. Like, do you have to go through a little discovery of like what makes you feel comforted and then what makes you feel sad? Or
it's okay to say no to things during the holidays, particularly if it brings up too much grief. You don't want to isolate. That can be very difficult. But if you want to spend some time on your own, that's perfectly okay. Know what kind of rituals remind you of them. Maybe it's making a recipe that they particularly loved or playing songs, holiday songs that trigger memories of them. You want to keep them present and close and not to forget about the loved ones in your life. It's not about really forgetting, but allowing them to continue on with those holidays with you.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned also checking in on the people that you know are having a hard time. And I know at one point some holiday post that I put on social media, I got a lot of responses of, I don't find the holiday that joyful because it makes me think of my loved one who has passed. I have people in my life that feel that way too. So when you are faced with that person, you know, where you're like, hey, happy holidays, and somebody tells you this is terrible for me, how do you support them? Like, what are some good ways to sit down with them and help them maybe find some joy?
Yeah. Don't talk them out of it. If they're struggling, to empathize with them. This is a really hard year for you. This could be a hard holiday. So giving them some empathy and support and giving them the room to talk about their struggles. We really sometimes push this idea that it has to be merry and bright, and it doesn't have to be. You can have some room for sadness, but also take them away from that as well and give them some distraction, some positive things. Find out what would bring them joy and just being very present. You know, we're so caught up in our phones and distraction that really being present can be such a gift.
Mm-hmm. And that's just one of the things that probably leads into complicated family dynamics. But in so many ways, families are a mashup of a lot of personalities, emotions. There's blended families. There's families that might be experiencing separation this year. What advice do you have to people who are among the 35% who say that it's stressful this time of year because of the family dynamics?
The word that comes to mind for me is bittersweet. We love spending time with family, having family meals and holidays and get together. But at the same time, it can bring to the surface old family dynamics. You can be the boss or the CEO in your company, and you walk into your house, and suddenly you are the youngest sibling that never gets hurt. So it can be really important to spend some time ahead of time mentally rehearsing what some of those emotional triggers that could be replayed. Mentally rehearsing gives you a lot of power around how you respond rather than react. With a lot of my clients who are trying to change their eating habits, during the holidays they may have a lot of food pushers. Mm-hmm. So we will rehearse mentally what they can say, and when they get in those situations, it's a lot easier. Mm-hmm. This year in particular, there might be a lot of discussion about politics or religion, a lot of things happening in the world. It can be good to be armed with some distraction. Bring holiday photos, games, have ideas of things that you can do. This is going to keep it kind of light, and it's okay to have some boundaries. If you don't want to talk about something, to put it off the table or limit the amount of time.
Yeah. You and I years ago talked about when politics does come up. And that has not gone away. I feel like that was like 5 years ago. I feel like maybe you and I talked like during COVID when that was, that was going to be, or post-COVID, the first holiday past, all of that. what do? You're faced, you're sitting there, and maybe it's the uncle or maybe it's the cousin that does not see eye to eye with you politically. They might bring it up. How do you respond? Like, is there a method that you recommend to people to kind of diffuse or refocus the conversation? Is that the way to go?
Refocusing can be helpful. Divert is one strategy. Also putting some distance between yourself and the person who may have some conflict. It's okay to disagree. My mantra is curious, not critical. So if that person has some ideas that are in contrast to yours, not to criticize them, but to ask them questions that can open up understanding why they think that the way that they do. You don't have to agree, but it's also okay to put some boundaries around it. You can also, even before you all meet, of setting some ground rules. In a very clear and kind text message that says, okay, we're not going to have political talk this holiday season. But if you do, again, it may come up, and it's okay if it causes a little discomfort, but putting some boundaries around it can be really helpful.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. A lot of people I know said that it kind of drove a wedge between some family members and friends over the past couple of years. What if you want to mend that fence this year of like, let bygones be bygones. I know we don't see eye to eye, but what would you recommend? Do people approach that? Do you have that conversation? What does that conversation look like?
Holidays are really about connection. And if this has put a wedge in between friends, family members, as it has for many people, it is a good time to bridge that gap. It's kind of a safe place to do so because people want to be together. Again, you can focus on other things, have activities that will help to divert you away from some of these topics, and focus on what you have that is more similar than different. Because with friends and family, there's a lot that you do share, common core values, activities that you love, and those can overshadow the things that are a little bit different.
Yeah. There's a few more topics I want to handle with you, especially you mentioned the food stress, but I'm going to save that for after the break. Stay tuned. We're going to have more with Dr. Susan Albers right after this. Welcome back. We are talking holiday stress. We all go through it for many different reasons. So we're trying to, it's almost like it is a holiday buffet. We're trying to pick a little bit from every dish. While we're on that topic, Dr. Susan Albers with Cleveland Clinic is joining us today. Now, you mentioned before the break food stress, especially for anybody who is really trying to watch what they eat, or maybe, they're trying to lead a healthier lifestyle. The holidays, I try to do it every day, and I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, all the holiday parties and all the events that we have is very much out of my regular habits. What advice do you have for people who are feeling a little stressed out, especially we're just ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday?
It is incredibly stressful for people around their eating during the holidays, whether it's emotional eating, but the number one stressor is dieting. I know a lot of people say, I'm going to diet, or put a lot of pressure on themselves during the holidays. And I encourage them to move that aside and instead to focus on mindful eating. And mindful eating allows you to eat some of those holiday treats, but being conscious about your choices. Eating slowly, enjoying those foods, not putting a lot of pressure on yourself in terms of all or nothing, and focusing on what they can add to their diet instead of take away. So before you go to a holiday event, making sure that they are loaded up with protein and not dehydrated, and they've slept well. Things that are going to help to support them to eat in a healthy way. Because nothing is more stressful than emotional eating during the holidays. And it's normal that you gravitate towards it because it's a way of soothing and calming stress, but in the long run causes a lot of stress.
Yeah. We'll talk about the being easy on ourselves in a second, but let's say somebody is being strict. You kind of just mentioned, making sure that you're going into an event with the right nutrition all day. So are you saying, like if I know that my friend is having a holiday party and they are just going to have like pizza and cookies, but I want to make sure that I've had my nutrients for the day. Do you recommend making sure we eat those before we go into the party, and then, or is it, are we allowing ourselves to indulge?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
I think that you can plan ahead and load up with some nutrients and protein. That's going to help you to make more mindful choices. The key is not being all or nothing about it. That if you go to a party, sometimes you get into that, oh, well, I'm here anyway. But when you eat in a mindful way, it really helps to reduce your stress, but you also enjoy all of those holiday foods. You can also change your mindset a little bit around the holidays. Instead of saying, I'm going to cut out sugar, make a value label of who you are, an identity. I'm a mindful eater. And then suddenly, all of your decisions when you enter a holiday party are around that mindset. And this really helps to shift you away from feeling guilt over the holidays, of feeling overly stuffed. I have an approach that I tell most of my clients. It's called the 3M approach. The first M is your mindset. Making sure that you are listening to what you're telling yourself during the holidays. Are you telling yourself stressful things like, I should be doing this, I should be doing that? Instead of should, say, I choose. This helps to put you back in the driver's seat. The second one is maintenance, making sure that you're sleeping, that you're moving. These are all going to help to buffer your body from stress. You know the stress is coming, but if you are well rested, you're going to make much better decisions every single day. And then the third one is minimize. Figure out what brings you joy, focus on that, and say no to the things that drain you. And it's sometimes easier said than done, but having that mindset can be a game changer.
Yeah. I mean, especially since we're just coming off of the Halloween holiday. Like, I'm tempted way too much. We tried to get rid of all the candy. Somehow there's still some in the house, and I'm like scrounging for it. So do we need to also make sure that our house isn't a collection of temptations?
Your environment matters. It impacts about 80% of your decisions. So if you set up your environment in a way that's going to support a healthy habit, particularly around eating, that's a great place to start. Looking around, doing a 360 of your kitchen to see what's hanging around. Is there food on the counter, or what's around? Halloween candy. An intervention that can help you to increase your healthy eating is putting a bowl of snacks right in your eyesight. This is going to help you to grab that fruit during the holidays, having snacks that are healthy, because we're creatures of convenience. We go for things that are very easy and right around us. So thinking about structuring your environment can be really helpful in making changes.
Yeah. So getting enough rest, I know every parent struggles with getting enough rest, no matter what. The mental load that, I don't want to stereotype, but there's been too many studies saying that women carry the mental load of the family more than men do. So this is a time of year where we are carrying an even bigger mental load when it comes to, did I buy the gift? Did I send the card? Did I write a thank you? What advice do you have for people who start to feel very overwhelmed by all of the to-dos?
You're right. The studies do support that moms carry an enormous mental load, and that is the invisible labor that happens behind the scenes, as you described, of buying the teacher gift, remembering who has allergies, all of those little details that can be mentally exhausting. Moms need some help. Parents need some help, and it can be helpful to clearly delegate to family members during this time. Instead of saying, I need help, saying, I would like you to wrap the presents. I would like you to do that. You're really role modeling that mom isn't in charge of everything, that everybody can help. The second part of that mental overload is decision fatigue. And that happens when we are making so many decisions in a day. You get to the end of the day and you're just tapped out. You can't make any more decisions. And that's when your child comes to you and says, can I have another cookie? And you say, whatever. You just can't make another decision. So having some structure to making decisions can really help. Let's say if you're feeling overwhelmed with gifts, you can have a strategy. A lot of parents use that 4 rule strategy, or 4 things. Buying one thing a child needs, what they want, something to wear, and something to read. But you could do any kind of strategy. Let's say you have adult children. You could say you're going to buy a gift card for something that they can wear to a restaurant, to an experience. Now you've taken all those hundreds of decisions of what do I buy and turned it into 3 or 4 decisions. And that's it.
It's so hard to, I think, that as a parent, to say no. And I mean, this is the time of year where it's, hey, we need volunteers to, even if it's like bring napkins to the holiday party for 2nd grade. Like, every parent feels that pressure to sign up for things. And I feel like there's an extra pressure around the holidays of like, well, somebody's got to do it. We need all this help. We're delegating. So somebody's always going to ask us to help with it. So how do you find that boundary? And where do you look at your time? Do you look at your calendar? Like you sign up for something a week in advance and then the day comes and now you have, you couldn't have predicted that would be the day that everything, what hits the fan or something like that. So what do you recommend for people to set that boundary when it's hard to predict the future?
So first, pause before you say yes. It's very easy to automatically say, oh, yes, of course, I'll help. Pause and be realistic about your time. Can you contribute? And then choose things that are really meaningful. Maybe your child's classroom, that might be something that's very meaningful to you. But, another activity that's asking you to do something, maybe you sign up later. It's okay to draw a line, even though it creates, for moms and dads, a lot of guilt. Mm-hmm. It's okay to put some limits around it. And if you change your mind, sometimes we change our mind and we have to know what our limits are. But knowing ahead of time and saying no it helps us to say yes to other things when we say no strategically.
Yeah. And just to wrap up, because I feel like this is so important, I do want to reiterate, how do you think, if we could leave anybody with some parting wisdom, how do we set our expectations? Now that we're right ahead of Thanksgiving, we have a little time. How do you set that expectation for the holiday when you still want to make sure that it's magical and joyful?
I think the key word is realistic. You have to be realistic about your budget. You have to be realistic about what really matters and let go of perfectionism. That it doesn't have to be perfect. If you think back about some of the holidays you've had in the past, when the things that stand out are sometimes the things that don't go well. The turkey that didn't get done or the tree that fell over. Sometimes it creates a lot of laughter and humor. And so it doesn't have to be perfect. And that helps us to reduce some of our expectations of ourselves and focus on the things that are very meaningful to you.
This is great. I need to take all of this advice. Susan, thank you so much.
Thank
We're
you.
going to bring you back in a couple of weeks to talk about also reinventing yourself post-holidays. So stay tuned to Parenting Playbook here on Fox 8 CLE+, and we'll see you right back here next time.